Welcome to the Music Dungeon.
Hey guys, welcome to the first installment of the Music Dungeon. Before we delve into the depth of music theory, we need to be able to understand the language of music, which much like any other language has its own written form. Understanding musical notation is not necessary to be able to understand the theoretical aspect, but will greatly improve the level of comprehension you can achieve in this series. Let's take a closer look at the system, shall we? The universal notation system most of us use these days has only made its appearance somewhere around 1000 AD. Before that, writing music down, if written down at all, has been rather imprecise and used, for example, the height of a symbol in relation to a single line to define a relative pitch. This could have looked something like this. Rather impractical, right? Today we use something called staff notation. The staff consists of 5 lines and utilizes the lines themselves as well as the spaces in between. It usually begins with something called a clef. This is a treble clef, also known as a G clef, because it indicates the location of the note G. There are other clefs as well, but we'll cover them in a different video when they become relevant. Alright, let's start filling this thing up with notes.
Hold up, notes?
Oh yeah, right. I guess I should talk about that. Notes visually represent pitch, and pitch changes with the frequency. The higher the frequency, the higher the pitch. Same thing goes the other way around. Some time ago, some very smart guys have decided that a frequency of 440 Hz resembles the note A, which we use today to properly tune our instruments. You know, this is all somewhat sciencey, and we only need to remember that the note A, this one right here, has its perfect pitch defined. Now let us boot up our piano. Oh gee, this old thing! And test it. Well, it seems to work just fine. This here, this is the note we just talked about, A. It's right next to its body G, we already know from the treble clef. On the other white keys we also have the notes B, C, D, E and F. These are the 8 letters that exist in music, and don't be afraid, this is not math, because we have found other ways to confuse people. You might have noticed that some of the white keys are separated by smaller black ones. The black keys contain notes that are between the white keys, and they are labeled based on the direction from where we're looking at them. See, if we go from one key to the one right next to it, it's called a half step, also known as a semitone. This is an important thing to remember because it's the smallest distance between 2 notes in the Western tonal range we use. We use so-called accidentals to point out whether we raise or lower the pitch of a note. Let's take this A for example and go down a half step to the black key right next to it. We now have to add a flat, this one. It's used whenever we lower the pitch of a note. Now we can also start at the G, raise the pitch of it by a half step and want it to the same black key. Instead now we have to add a sharp. There's also the neutral sign, which neutralizes the previous accidental. Whether we call it A flat or G sharp, the note itself will sound the same, but it stands in a different context based on from where we look at it. When a note has the same pitch but multiple names, it's an enharmonic. This will make more sense to you once we start learning about scales. We can do this for all the other keys as well. Let's test our newly gained knowledge. If we lower the D by a half step, we get a D flat. If we raise the C, we get a C sharp. The smart ones among you might have noticed that there's neither a black key between B and C, nor between E and F. This is the case because these notes are only a half step apart. By following the just explained logic, we can also lower an F to get an F flat, which has the same pitch as an E, or raise an E to an E sharp, which has the same pitch as an F. Notice that E sharp and F flat are not enharmonic because they do not share the same pitch. Now tell me, what do we call a C if we want to lower its pitch by a half step? Guess. The answer is C flat. Another thing we need to know is that 2 half steps add up to 1 whole step. Going from D to E, you can either say that you're going up 2 half steps or 1 whole step. Going from B to C sharp is also either 2 half steps or 1 whole step. We can start counting up and come to the conclusion that our piano has 12 half steps, which is the standard tonal range for the Western music we are acclimated to. We've identified how to read the pitch of a note. But this doesn't help to tell us for how long we should play the note. We don't know its duration. No worries. I'm here to tell you. This is crucial because melodies generally have their own distinct rhythm. We already know what a quarter note is because we have looked at quarter notes all along. We can easily visualize how notes are broken down if we bake ourselves a delicious cake. We can imagine this as a whole note, which is the longest duration in music. We can cut it in half to get 2 half notes, cut these apart again and we get 4 quarter notes, cut those again and we get 8 notes, which have a little flag that expresses that a note has been halved in its value. Cut those again and you get 16th notes, which have 2 little flags. Theoretically this can go on and on and on, although higher values than 32nd notes are very rare. Any of the before mentioned note values can have a little dot to the right of them, which would look something like this. The The dot resembles that you add half of the note's value to itself. Now as a small training exercise, I want you guys to tell me what the values of these notes are. Pause the video and take as much time as you need. Go on, pause the video. Now, I'll count down from 3 and show you the results. Don't cheat. 3, 2, 1. Another thing we want to get acquainted with are triplets. We've just learned 2 quarter notes occupy the same space as 1 half note. So-called quarter triplets, on the other hand, are 3 notes that also occupy the same space as 1 half note. In conclusion, we can say that a single quarter triplet's duration is 2/3 of 1 quarter note. But what if nothing is to be played? We need signs that tell us for how long to rest. And to be honest, we hard-working musicians deserve a pause. The exact same way we have whole, half, quarter, eighth notes, etc., we have rest signs that last an equivalent duration. Let's compare them. This is a whole note rest. It's a small rectangle that lies beneath the second staff line from the top. The half note rest is easy to confuse with the whole note rest, because it's the same sign, except it lies on top of the third staff line from the top. The quarter note rest kinda looks like a janky Z with a C that connects to the bottom of it. This is a good way to remember it, especially in case you have to draw one yourself by hand. An eighth note rest on the other hand is pretty straightforward. It consists of a diagonal line with a teardrop shape connected to its left side. For the following rest signs, it follows the same principle as with the 16th or 32nd notes. You add another teardrop to it, which illustrates that it's half of the previous value. We're almost ready to read and write sheet music. The last thing we're going to discuss today are time signatures and measures. The time signature stands at the beginning of the staff right next to the clef and expresses how many beats are in one measure, and also what counts as a beat. 4/4 is the most common one, and you've certainly heard it countless times. The 4 on top means that in one measure there are 4 of what's in the bottom, in this case 4, which again means quarter notes. 4 quarter notes make up one measure, or commonly known, one bar. Another time signature that you might be familiar with as well is 3/4. This time, 3 quarter notes make up one measure. This is the time signature that defines a waltz, for example. You can come up with any possible combination, like 5/4, 7/8, or even 17/32. Although that's just an example, and I strongly urge you to stick to 4/4 in the beginning, since it's tremendously more common than any other time signature. I want to thank you guys for watching the first episode of the Music Dungeon, which hopefully isn't as frightening as the name might lead to believe. Since making educational videos like this one is something that I do in my free time and on my own, I would like for you to check out my Patreon page, in case you want to support what I do and or get access to exclusive content. I'm also available for Skype lessons in music theory, as well as guitar, since that's what I study.
Because music theory isn't actually scary.